Hi everybody, I'm Lisa and welcome to Lisa's Stamp Studio. I'm using the Beautiful You stamp set today in an unconventional way. I'm going to take that beautiful vintage dress with the hat and I'm going to turn it into a wedding gown with a veil. Take a look at this. I was thrilled with how this came out. You're going to get a better look at the stamp table in just a minute. But remember, you can find all the cutting dimensions for this card along with pictures and a supply list over on my blog. If you're here from YouTube, you'll find the link down below in the description bar so you can get there really easily. And while you're there, make sure you take a look at my online classes. I have some fun ways for you to stamp with me from home. Let's head over to the stamp table and let's get started. I think now you can appreciate the stunningness of this card. I am just thrilled with how this came out. And I'm really excited to show you how you can extend the image to make the dress, as well as doing the embellishments, including the veil. Let's get started. I'm using a piece of Sahara Sand cardstock. You're going to find all the cutting dimensions for today's card over on my blog. If you're viewing here from YouTube, you'll find the link right down below in the description bar. This designer series paper has got to be the most popular one that we've had this year in the occasions catalog among my customers. It's called Falling in Love. The patterns in here don't even do it justice. I mean, it is stunning in person. This piece happens to be a lace, and on the other side, you've just got really beautiful blushing bride pastel hearts. Just gorgeous. This whole suite of products has really been popular and just fabulous to work with. We're going to start by adhering the designer series paper to the one side of the card base. I'm going to add snail adhesive to the back of my designer paper. And I'm going to mount that all the way here to the right side of my card. All right, we're going to set that aside, and now we're going to work on the focal point. Now we're going to stamp the image of the woman on a vanilla panel. I'm only wanting part of the dress because I'm going to extend it to make into the gown. So I'm only going to ink it up partially. With the basic black archival ink, it's a linen-based top, so it's not soft like the other ink pads, the firm foam. So you're going to find that you can actually place it on here and you can give it a little twist and maneuver a little bit right, a little bit left to get just enough ink coverage. I have better luck stamping it horizontally because I just find I have better placement. I want to leave a little bit of room at the top, so firm, even pressure, and a lift. I'm going to use the Project Life journaling pen. This is the 05 point. There's two in a package, and there's an 01 and there's an 05. This one just has a little bit broader tip, which will mimic these stamped lines a little bit better than the thinner tip. I'm going to take the cap off and I'm going to give it a little scribble here on my paper to make sure that it's flowing. You're going to want to make sure you use the pen slowly and straight up and down. So I'm going to come right here on her hip and I'm going to mimic this line and I'm going to come straight down. And then here on this hip and come straight down and flare. I'm going to add a little bit of detailed lines in here as well and another here. Once you've got that completed, it's just a matter of letting it dry and it just takes a few seconds. I am going to do a little bit of watercoloring with this. So here's a disclaimer. You need to be careful because you don't want to smear the ink. So I'm just going to let that sit for a second. I also want to point out, do you see how part of her hand is missing? Okay, don't worry about that. We're going to go ahead and put the flowers there. No two of these images are ever going to be the same. You can see here I've got her hand and here I don't. The other great thing about the Project Life journaling pens is they do come together, so you'll get both. The 01, which is my favorite pen, I use this one a lot, it's really, really fine. So it'll allow me to go back in there and sketch anything that I've missed. But to be quite honest with you, it's not going to be noticeable when we're finished. So don't worry about if you miss that or not. So I'm going to set this aside and let that dry. And then I'm going to bring over a piece of very vanilla cardstock. This is just a scrap, and this is where I'm going to do the sentiment. I'm using the words Wedding Wishes, and this is from the stamp set Floral Phrases. So I'm going to ink that up. I'm going to stamp that here in the center. And then we're going to die cut this using the framelets. So I have my Big Shot and I have my magnetic platform. I've got a clear mat for the bottom. I've got my greeting, and I'm using the oval framelets. This is the smallest one in the collection. And I also have a scrap of Sahara Sand cardstock, and I'm using the smallest scallop in that package of framelits. So let me just give you a quick glimpse of these. These are fabulous. I'm really loving these. You get lots of cascading sizes as well as the scallop. So these are just a great, great buy. I'm going to cover this up with another clear mat to protect those, and I'm just going to crank them through the Big Shot. So here we've got our pieces. We're just going to poke those out. So now we've got our ovals. So we've got our greeting. We're going to go ahead and mount these. I'm going to put a little snail adhesive on the back of the words and mount them to the scallop. I'm going to bring you in a little bit closer so that you can see. I'm using the Blushing Bride ink pad, and I'm turning it over and I'm giving it a squeeze, which is going to push ink into the lid of the pad, or what I refer to as the well of the pad. I'm going to use an aqua painter. I like to make sure that I squeeze the tip so it's not overly saturated and wet, because I can control the water on this paper. This is not watercolor paper, so you want to make sure that you don't oversaturate it, otherwise the paper will pile. So I'm going to take some color here, and I'm going to stretch it out to the side so it's a little bit watery so that I can actually run with this. So I'm going to color in the dress, take a little bit more color. I'm going to come down this side, and I'm going to stretch out my ink. I'm going to come down this side. So you can see the darker areas are always going near an outline. And then I'm coming down here, and I'm filling in the dress with long strokes of the aqua painter. And then just continuing that all the way across. Okay, and you can see how I avoided going right over that line. And then I'm going to fill in her bodice. And then up here in her hat, I'm going to fill that in just a little bit as well. And a little bit underneath in here. And then I'm going to go back over with a little bit darker shade of the ink, more concentrated, right here on the cuffs and on the sleeve, just so we have a little bit of concentration. All right, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to let that dry. Real important that you take your aqua painter and you squeeze it over your Stampin' Scrub so water will come through the bristles. You never want to put your aqua painter away dirty, because I'll tell you what, I've learned the hard way. I've pulled it out to use it and it had residual color and I've just made a mess. I like to pinch the bristles together too as well to make sure that when I cap it, they don't come out the sides. Just take really good care of it. It'll last you forever. Now while this is drying, let's go ahead and punch out the flowers that we're going to need. I'm using the Tree Builder Punch. This little flower here has come in so handy. But one thing I did find out about it is because the flower is so small, you can see in relation to my index finger, that punching it through just designer paper, which is what I used, was really troublesome. So what I did was this. I actually put a piece of cardstock scrap behind it. So I had a little bit more weight. And then I slipped my paper in, and then I punched. And then I just separated the image from the cardstock. And I did that for a total of 4 times. So I punched a few ahead of time. And I've got those here. The great thing about the designer paper is you have all kinds of variations of tones, which is going to really lend to the credence of this looking more real. My image is dry, so I'm going to grab my glue dots, and now we're going to do her bouquet. So I'm going to use glue dots to attach these. So I've got one here. And I'm going to use a total of 3 flowers for her bouquet. And then another here. And then I like to use my paper piercing tool to get them off because they're tiny. And then I'm going to lift. And then I'm going to put that right here on her hand. Do you see how I've added this one here? So I'm going to do one here. And then I'm going to grab another. And I'm going to put another here. So you can still see her hand, but we're not going to have to worry about not seeing her fingers. And then the last one, I'm going to create in a bundle here. So it looks like a very large bouquet. I'm going to add one more here to her hat, but I don't want to do that just yet, but I do want to get it ready. So I'm going to grab this last little flower, it's tiny, and I'm going to put it on a glue dot and get that all ready for me because I'm going to work on her veil, and I want to show you how I did that. I'm using the Very Vanilla lace trim. This stuff is beautiful, but you're only going to need a tiny bit. I cut off 2 scallops, 1, 2. So just a tiny bit. I'm going to cut that off. And then what I did is I put a glue dot, another glue dot, right in the center. And because the lace is very filigreed, there's going to be open areas, which is going to allow you just to fold over the edges on top of itself, which leaves you this like little pleat, which I thought looked like a veil. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add another glue dot to the back of that, and I'm going to attach this to her hat where I'm going to want the veil to come out. So I'm going to lay that here. Now here comes that last flower we had ready, and that's going to go right over the top. So pretty, huh? But it's got to have bling. But let's put the card together before we do that, so it'll be a little bit easier to get the adhesive on. So I'm going to flip that over. Going to add snail adhesive to the back and then down my sides. I have a coordinating piece here of Sahara Sand cardstock to mount that on. So we're just going to give that a little bit of a border. And then I'm going to flip this over. And now I'm going to add some dimensionals to the back. So I'm going to do one in each corner. I found with the postage meter that it's always best to balance these out so that makes it there looking relatively even. And I'm going to take off the paper backing to those. Here's the base of our card, and I offset the image a little bit over to the left. So I have a little bit of a border here so I can let that really pretty paper show through. Next step was Clear Wink of Stella. I absolutely love the shimmer to this product, so I wanted to add it to her dress, to add a little bit of shimmer. So pretty, because every bride's dress glistens, doesn't it? So I'm going to do a little bit here and a little bit on my hat. And we'll let that dry. It'll take just a few seconds since it has an alcohol base. And then, of course, comes the bling. That's the fun part. This is going to be the pearls. So we're going to add some pearls to the flowers as well as to her bodice to create a waistline. I use the very smallest one for the hat. I'm going to add that here to the center. I added some more small ones here to the center of my flowers. So one there and another here. And then I have one more that I'm going to place here. All right, but I wanted some pearls across the bodice. Now, if you're happy with it the way it is, you can leave it. I chose these here, this middle size, and I'm going to add one here and another here. I don't think any wedding can have too many pearls, do you? And then the last one was here. So I've got a little bit of a curve going to her waistline. Now let's add our words. So take those wedding wishes, I'm going to flip those upside down, and I am going to use one dimensional. And I'm going to put it on this side only, and I'm going to show you why in just a second. The other side, we're going to add a little adhesive. The reason being is that this elevation is different than this. Remember, we put this up on dimensionals, so we want to make sure that we've got it balanced really well, and you can mount that wherever you'd like. I'm going to stick mine down there. Isn't she pretty? So pretty, huh? So here's the one we created together, and here's the one before you joined me. Keep in mind too, depending on how you draw the dress is going to be a big difference in the definition as well as how much ink you're going to use when you color in. I just realized I didn't show you the stamp set. Oh my gosh, beautiful you. Isn't this beautiful? The images are stunning and really versatile. Love all the different greetings. And just so that you know, these squiggled images will actually fill in the dresses and the elements for your card. Lots of great ideas for this. Thanks so much for joining me, everyone. I hope to see you again. Have a great day.